This is the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, JC, and you're coming your way on today's show. 5 moves I want San Francisco to make in the lead up to training camp, which is only a couple of weeks away. Before we get started, though, I want you to get into the comment section on call-in for our live podcast and also after the fact on YouTube. If you're excited about training camp, I want you to simply hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. We start off with move number 1 of the 5 moves I want the Niners to make in the lead up to training camp. Find a way to trade Jimmy Garoppolo and get some value back. What this does by just moving on from the Garoppolo era frees up some money to sign Deebo Samuel as well as Nick Bosa to those contract extensions that we've covered ad nauseum here on the channel. It allows Trey Lance to take over the starting quarterback role without any unwanted or unneeded drama. By moving on from Garoppolo, you show confidence in Trey Lance that you believe he can be the guy. You believe that he is the quarterback that you thought he was going to end up being when you moved up to take him in the 2021 NFL draft at number 3. You move into this new era without any hesitations. I was fine with not playing Trey Lance in his rookie campaign. You had a roster that was ready to compete for a Super Bowl. You damn near made it to the Super Bowl. And if they made it against the Cincinnati Bengals, a team who they beat in the regular season, it would have been a masterful season. And that's how good this roster was last year and how good this roster can be this year. But it's time to move forward, and it's time to show some confidence in Trey Lance to see what he can do. And frankly, I think with Lance as the quarterback, this offense can be more explosive. They'll push the ball downfield. I think the run game will benefit. And opposing defensive coordinators, they're going to lose some sleep about the dual threat ability of Trey Lance. Also, by moving off of Garoppolo, you start to build your team and the offense around Lance. Right now, it's kind of a combination of having this offense cater around Garoppolo in years past, but also going in and ushering in this new Trey Lance era. The concern with moving off of Garoppolo, whether it be a trade or a cut, Nate Sudfeld as the backup, I don't have a ton of confidence in him. So if Garoppolo is on this team, he would legitimately be one of, if not the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. To have that security blanket, would be advantageous for this football team, because if Lance goes down, your Super Bowl aspirations with the team that has Super Bowl ready and premier players like Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, the list goes on and on and on, then that's where you enter precarious territory. Before we get to move number 2 that I want to see before training camp, I want to hear from you once more in the comments section. Do you want Jimmy Garoppolo back on the San Francisco 49ers this upcoming season? Let me know your thoughts on that subject matter in the comment section right now. Move number 2, an obvious one. Extend Deebo Samuel. You get rid of the awkwardness of him being unhappy and maybe potentially causing a problem within this coaching staff, the front office, and in the locker room, which can derail things to a certain degree. We've seen some examples of that in years past. Coming off a historic and special year, Deebo has shown that he's deserving of a new deal. And for him, you drafted him in the 2nd round out of South Carolina. He's going into the final year of his rookie contract, doesn't have financial security beyond that, and $3.9 million isn't a lot for a professional athlete, and I can see where he's coming from his perspective of wanting a new deal. And here's the thing. If Deebo is willing to play this year, but long-term does not want to play for San Francisco, use him to your advantage. That's fine. You pay him $3.9 million. You get elite-level production. You run him into the ground. You use him aplenty as a wide receiver and a running back. And if he wants to walk and hit the free agency market and get paid by a different team after you used him a lot the last 2 years, then that's fine. Move number 3, another extension. This time we go and pivot to the other side of the football in Nick Bosa. You can make the argument that Nick Bosa is the more valuable player than Deebo Samuel. I value edge rushers more than I do wide receivers. I think in the draft, especially nowadays, so many talented wideouts coming out from the college ranks, and we've seen a couple of examples over the last couple of years. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. These guys can make impacts right away as young players, whereas it's really hard to find an edge rusher, especially an edge rusher like Nick Bosa. First-round pick, so he does have financial security. Unlike Deebo, his base salary already set for 2023 at nearly $18 million, to be precise, 17.8, and he is a franchise building block as well as a cornerstone. Who do you think gets paid first between Deebo and Nick Bosa? 97 for Nick Bosa's number, or type 19 for Deebo Samuel. Let your voices be heard in the comment section. And also, make sure you subscribe to us on Call-In. We do a live podcast every single week where you have the opportunity to call into the show. Subscribe to us on YouTube because we're really going to increase our coverage over the next couple of days, weeks, and months, with training camp around the corner, followed by preseason and the regular season. That's when it gets real. 2 moves left to get to that I want to see happen for the Niners before training camp. Number 4, sign center JC Tretter, who somehow is still available on the free agency market. I don't have much confidence up to this point that Jake Brendel can be the guy. And offensive line is a concern for this football team going into 2022, especially with Trey Lance being inexperienced, and you don't want him to lose confidence by getting hit a lot and then maybe getting injured. Why do I not have confidence in Jake Brendel? There's no sample size there of him playing well in a long-term starting role. And the center spot, one of the most important positions on a football team and one of the most overlooked. JC Tretter's Pro Football Focus grades last year. He is top 10 center in the league, one of the best at that position. Overall grade of 78.7. League average is 70, so well above league average in that regard. Pass blocking grade of nearly 84. That's very, very good. Run blocking grade 74.8, so nearly 75. And at that center spot for Cleveland, more than 1,000 snaps, 1 sack, and 1 hit allowed. So he was really good in pass protection. And Jake Brendel, he could give up that production in one single game because I just don't know what he can bring to the table. I certainly have some concerns there. So what is your level of concern along this offensive line? I want you to scale it for me from 1 to 100. Lastly, move number 5 before we start taking some calls. Make sure you get into the caller queue right now. Instill confidence in Lance. And this is a tie-in to point number 1 with Jimmy Garoppolo. Let Trey Lance know that he is the guy. Do the necessary things to surround him with a good complementary cast. You take a look at what the Philadelphia Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. And I think Hurts and Lance are very similar quarterbacks because they need to improve the accuracy. They have intriguing physical gifts with running the football. Lance has a much better arm than Jalen Hurts. But what did the Eagles do? I mean, they drafted Devontae Smith. They knocked that out of the park. They brought in A.J. Brown. They've bulked up that defense. They have a really good offensive line. And they're putting all of their eggs for 2022 in the Jalen Hurts basket to see if he can be the franchise quarterback. If he is, you sign him to a long-term deal. He's your guy. If he's not, then you pivot, you refocus, and you try to find a different quarterback. But with the Niners, I thought they should have moved off of Garoppolo because it would have allowed them to put together a very good team. Now, I think this roster is still top 10 in the NFL. There are future Hall of Famers, Pro Bowlers, all pros on this team. So from that standpoint, this roster is in a really good position. But let Trey Lance know that he's the guy, and in turn, you just boost his confidence to a certain degree. And despite the reports of the arm fatigue and the arm fitness, show Lance that the organization supports him. That's really important for a young quarterback. So many times we see these young QBs, they go to these just decile organizations and they end up failing because there isn't that support. There isn't that foundation, whether it be from the owner, general manager, coaching staff to the roster. So what is one move you want to see the Niners make before training camp? Let me know in the comment section. We'll start taking some calls right here. Appreciate all of you for tuning in on Call-In and watching us here on YouTube. Will not be the end of the cut. We'll take some calls. Going to start off with Evan. Evan, if you have a move that you want the Niners to make, let me know. Going to make you the next caller. Make sure you unmute yourself and welcome on to the 49ers Report. It's good to hear from you once more.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's up, man?
Not much. The one move I want the 49ers to make, I would say trade. If I was John Lynch right now, I think I would trade for T.J. Hawkinson because George Kittle gets hurt way too much, and honestly, that scares me half the time.
Yeah, look, I understand the conversation about Kittle. He's had 2 elite years of more than 1,000 yards, but he hasn't eclipsed that any other year in his career. And I'm looking at the contract for T.J. Hawkinson, For the player that he is, it's actually a pretty affordable contract. This year, base salary of $965,000 with a cap hit of $6.5. And then in 2023, base salary of more than $9 million with a cap hit the same. He becomes an unrestricted free agent, still at 27 years old in 2024. He's a really good player. Frankly, if George Kittle were to retire, if an injury were to happen, I wouldn't mind TJ Hockenson being a trade candidate at some point. But right now, I don't think it makes a lot of sense because you have Kittle, you have Charlie Warner, you have a couple of other solid options like Jordan Matthews trying to compete for a roster spot. And, you know, I think this 49ers roster at that tight end spot, they're in a good position. But any other moves that you want the Niners to make, Evan, or any other thoughts on this football team?
Kind of two. One, I've been seeing how their process has been going on. The one position I think they're really weak at is in the trenches on defensive tackle. I think they should really try to trade for Fletcher Cox.
Fletcher Cox, yeah, he's an intriguing player because the Eagles drafted Jordan Davis, and I think it's a matter of time before he either retires. He's been getting it done for a long time. I believe he was a member of the 2012 draft class out of Mississippi State for Philadelphia, former first-round pick, and he's had a great career where he's been one of the Eagles' best players. But they're starting to look into the future. That's why they drafted Jordan Davis, and the play for Fletcher has gone downhill a little bit. Really good player, somewhat of a high price tag, even though he did that contract restructure. I think ideally Philadelphia wants to hold on to Cox so that he can help, you know, tutor and teach Jordan Davis, and then they might move on from him after this upcoming season. When you look at the Niners' defensive tackles, it really all comes down to Javon Kinlaw. Can he play? Can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, I think he can play. I think he can really do a lot of damage at that DT spot. He can be a dominant player. Unfortunately for him, he has really struggled to stay on the field, and because of that, the production hasn't been there. So defensive tackle, I wouldn't sleep on Hassan Ridgeway. I wouldn't sleep on maybe Eric Armstead playing interior more. Charles Omenihu, the same can be said for him. Kalia Davis is a draft pick out of UCF who, if he's able to come off that torn ACL, he's really, really athletic. So, Evan, appreciate your call. Anything else?
Okay. This is just like a little my opinion thing. Like with the whole Deebo thing, if Deebo somehow sits out and stuff, the one wide receiver I would love them to sign is either T.Y. Hilton or see if they can pick up a little cold that molds into a diamond. The one wide receiver I really love is that one wide receiver out of Miami. I think it was, did Parker get traded? I forgot.
He did get traded. Yeah, he got traded to the New England Patriots. So he's off the market. And then the Patriots on Tuesday, they traded N'Keal Harry as well for a 7th-round pick to Chicago.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking Cordell Patterson, the Niners should, if Deebo does sit out.
Yeah, obviously the Niners have an interesting predicament on their hands. Appreciate the call, Evan. If Deebo doesn't want to play, if he holds out from training camp and his trade demand is still there, because I'm not sure Brandon Ayuk can be that bona fide number one wide receiver. So that right there would raise a lot of concerns. And you might have to be in a position where you trade for a wide receiver, and that would open up the market to try to target somebody to help this offense and help out Trey Lance. Before we hop on out of here for our YouTube segment as part of our call-in show, once again, make sure you subscribe. Once again, let me know a Niners move that you want San Francisco to make prior to training camp coming up in just a couple of weeks, and get that comment section flowing.